Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest season of Gentle Warriors, brought to you by Caregiver Saathi. I'm your host, Jannat Baswani, a psychology student working with Caregiver Saathi. Today, we bring to you a story of Laila that some of you might resonate with. Uh, Hi, Laila.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
All good. Looking forward to this.
All right. So let me tell the viewers about you, and then I'll let you have your own introduction as well. Leila is a soft skills trainer, mentor, and life coach. She's also certified as an EQ trainer, DNI trainer, as well as a resilience trainer. And she's worked in this sector for more than 35 years, and today she's here to tell her story. Leila, why don't you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Thanks, Jannat, and thanks for this opportunity because I really feel caregivers need that kind of support. And when you hear stories, it sort of reassures you that you're
Yeah.
not alone. So coming back to my introduction, I have worked for 35 years. I quit my job in 2021, early 2021,
Mhm.
because I lost my dad and then mom couldn't have managed alone. So that was one of the reasons. And I had a hell of a time during COVID because that was the time my dad was, going downhill. And COVID sort of had a lot of restrictions. We had curfews and maids are not available.
Mhm.
So we were doing housework and working on our laptops. And I was a caregiver for my father who was 91
Yeah.
and he had a spinal issue. So he was deteriorating.
Mhm.
And we had decided not to take him to the hospital because in those days, hospitals were crazy. They wouldn't allow relatives to go in and we couldn't have, done that to him. So we did everything for the last 1 year at home. Got
Yeah.
him a hospital bed, got him an oxygen machine, tried maids, and whatever was available, we
Yeah.
managed to do for him.
Yeah.
And today, I'm taking care of my mom, who was agile till last year. She broke her leg. After that, passed away. She broke her leg, so she needed help. And obviously, with age, all hearing issues, and that all sets in.
Yeah.
It's a given, I guess. So I'm taking care of her.
Yeah.
So that's how I became a caregiver. And in fact, I'm a patient as well now because I had a spine surgery in Jan this year because it really had an impact on me. The last 4 years have been quite crazy. So I sort of didn't take care of my health while taking care of my parents. And somewhere it sort of showed up as a spine damage.
Yeah.
So this year in Jan, I'm undergone a surgery. So I'm coming out of it now.
Yeah.
So I'm caregiving and I'm a patient, both ways.
Yeah, I was going to say, like you said, there's been a journey. First, you were the caregiver. Now you are, receiving the care, so to say.
Yes.
And so when you entered the role of being a caregiver to your father, what were your thoughts then going into that role? And now that it's been 4 years and now you're a caregiver to somebody else as well, each
Right.
experience, I'm sure, is different. So,
Each phase has been different,
yeah.
Jannat. When it started off, we didn't realize he would deteriorate to this extent. He was walking with a walking stick, then with a walker. But then the last few months, like it was just downhill. He couldn't do anything on his own. So we had to have somebody with him 24 hours. And so at that point of time, we didn't have a choice really. No, I don't, at least I didn't have a choice because I live with my parents. So you can't sort of allocate your duties to somebody else. And like I said, it was during the peak of COVID.
Mhm.
So December 19, he started going downhill, and Jan 21 is when he passed away. So that 1 year of 2020 was a nightmare, let's put it that way. Because we were doing housework, which we are not used to, whether
Yeah.
it was jhadu pocha, bartan, washing machine, drying the clothes, folding the clothes, it all gets done, when you have maids around. But
Yeah.
during COVID, we had that load, we had our office work, and office work continued till late night, So it was like you're sitting with your laptop and taking care of something else. So you're multitasking, you switch off your screen and you do something else so that people don't see you doing it. But that's the way we lived, in those days. So
Yeah.
at that point in time, we just did it because there was no choice. And, you can't sort of neglect a patient who's in the house. So we would stretch as much as we could, get up in the middle of the night, get up in the morning, to do a pamper change. It just happened in those days. And then, of course, after he passed away, things were a little easy for about 6 months until my mom had a fall. So I was like, now the cycle started again, but it's in nobody's hands. It's really something that happens. I don't think we make a choice to become a caregiver. It's just our circumstances that, sort of push us into it, or you can delegate it to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, but in my case, there was no one else in the family. So I'm the only caretaker really for them
Yeah.
because I lost my sister many years ago. So there's no other sibling that who can, come in and pitch in. So there's no option in that sense. And her children are not in the country. My children are working. So can't expect. They were there, of course. They were there to help me out as and when at night. But during the day, it was entirely on to me.
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of work, you had mentioned, work was also happening and, trying to hide while you're doing work to maybe, not be seen as doing something else. How did you manage the two responsibilities? Were there tips you were enforcing in your life? Were there, something that you would like to share with people that maybe helped you or didn't help you?
sure. So one tip is that we can't do everything. We try to sort of stretch and make sure that, food is good, everybody's, things are in place, everything gets taken care of. We become superwomen or supermen, whatever it is, whoever it is, whichever gender. But we've got to be realistic. कि नहीं हुआ तो नहीं हुआ, let it be. Which I think was a big learning for me. We tried to do, at least I tried to, be the best at my job because there were deadlines. So you can't say no to that. Like once or twice, I couldn't attend a meeting and I had to tell my people, I said, that's not too good. So I put my video off and I was sitting with him with my laptop and just talking.
Yeah.
So those are things we had to do in those days because, like I said, we were going to the peak of COVID. And another thing was that if it's not happened, I think even the family should understand that, you can't get everything done on time every day. There is, like, for example, laundry. If the clothes don't get washed today, it's okay. It's not something which is on fire, but food has to get cooked. The patient's food has to get cooked, his medicines, his pampers, everything. So we have to prioritize, if I may say so, that there are 100 things on your to-do list every morning. I make a to-do list every day. So it was like every day it became longer and longer, despite my fact of, ticking off what happened yesterday. But there were other things that popped up, there were requirements, there were tests to be done, whatever, it just went on and on. And in terms of tips, I would say family support, even if they are senior citizens who can't do much, but at least they're there to answer the doorbell, sit with the patient when you can go and do something else, or even have a shower for that matter. Somebody has to be there with the patient. So that kind of family support is required, I would say, and really sort of appreciated. But when you're all alone, like for my mom's case now, I'm all alone. So there's a huge difference, between the time when dad was unwell and the time mom is unwell. So it's really telling. So sometimes I just have to tell her, I said, look, mom, I can't do it. I said, just hold on. हो जाएगा, कल हो जाएगा, परसों हो जाएगा, but there's no tearing hurry, So prioritizing is one big thing. And I think we have to take care of ourselves also. I neglected my health completely because, like I said, there was no time to think about myself because, like, work karna hai, dad ko dekhna hai, ghar ka dekhna hai. And we had some mishaps in the house also. My daughter met with an accident in the kitchen. So she had to be hospitalized for 2 days. So I was like torn in different directions, not knowing who to take care of. We also had a ceiling of ours crash in dad's room. The plaster came down one morning at 4 o'clock. So we had all kinds of challenges. So, like I said, it just fell on us and we had to do it. So, no choice and just do the best that you can. If you are a caregiver, I would say anyone who sort of is watching this video, just do as much as you can, but also keep that little time for yourself, for your health, for your mental sanity.
Yeah.
Because you just get torn in all possible directions. And then your temperament goes for a toss. You'll be shouting, you'll be screaming. So let that not happen. I would say we need to, I can't say calm, but we need to be in control
Yeah. I
of
mean,
our emotions.
like you just said, try and be in control, but there's so many things that are out of your control. Things happen
Absolutely.
all the time and you don't expect them. So I think, what are things that, you did do to make, you confident about the situation, about control when, things were not in control, you know?
See, one is the patient is the center of everything, right? And in such a case, when you are a caregiver, and especially in our case, because he was terminally ill and we knew he wouldn't survive very long. So the focus was really him.
Yeah.
All his requirements, whether it was his medication, his pampers, his, diaper changes, everything had to be sort of prioritized. So
Mhm.
that was first priority. Second priority was, of course, the rest of the household and, taking care of mom as well, because she too realized that he's going. So, managing those emotions, making sure that she goes out, at least for a walk downstairs, if not much more than that, we all need that shift of focus. So if nothing else, just stand on the balcony, and get a breath of fresh air and come back inside. So that was, I think, key at that point of time. So you prioritize the patient first and then the rest of the household, depending on who requires what, at whatever time.
Yeah.
And of course, work.
Of course, work is also there.
Housework is always there. Thankfully, at that time, we didn't have couriers coming because everything was shut. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the doorbells ringing is another painful experience, when you're home.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think next you mentioned in your previous answer as well, taking care of yourself. So how did you ensure, in comparison to your first and second time being a caregiver, that you were giving yourself, the time that it needs, you need to have a self-care routine, to take care of yourself? So yeah, just the
to be
difference in
honest, I
experience.
think in my first round, I didn't do anything for myself other than eating, having a bath, taking care of my sleep, which would be again disturbed because of, getting up in the middle of the night. But I would manage to get about, say, 6 hours of sleep. And because during the day, there was no way I could have slept because I was working also at that time. And we had back-to-back calls. So there was no question of taking a break or, like literally from 9 to about 7:38, we would be on in front of the laptop
Yeah.
back to back. And so there was no rest in that sense, no mental rest as well. But I would say second time around, because we're not in a COVID situation, it's much easier. And I had a maid for the first 6 months. So, there was help. Of
Yeah.
course, they would come by about 8 and leave by about 37. So it wasn't full-time help. It was part-time, well, not 24 hours, let's put it that way. But those are the times when I could at least take a break. I could go out.
Yeah.
I could do my things. And I had to, because you have to do certain things. You have to step out of the house to, pick up certain things or do the banking or whatever, even
Yeah.
going to the ATM and pulling out money. So it's easier now. And the first time, of course, like I said, COVID was the primary reason for, the hardship almost doubling. So those were very challenging days that we went through.
Yeah. How did you find asking others for help? I know you said you reached out to family, but was it difficult,
No, in fact, it was easy, but because of COVID, we were very scared of getting anyone into the house.
Yeah.
That those were the peak COVID days. So we would ask our maid to wear a mask, wash her hands. When she entered, we would make her change her mask because they came from hutments. Let's face it, they don't stay, where isolation zones are there. So you don't know who they're interacting with. So asking anyone for help was also a fear in those days because that was like, so isolated from the rest of the world. And we didn't want them getting COVID. That was the last thing we wanted, We couldn't have done much. So the fear of COVID sort of prevented us from asking for help. But yes, I had friends when I had certain issues when my cook wouldn't come or whatever. One of my friends who says just down my lane, she would, bring chapatis and come to the gate. I would go down and pick it up. So I would make the sabji and she would, supply the chapatis for me. So you don't waste time on that. So yes, I did have a lot of friends helping out in that way, but not physically in the house because of the COVID fear.
Yeah.
And they also felt like, if we bring in the infection, then even if we infect others, like my mom or me, that again would be chaotic. So they preferred not to come into the house, saying that because they go out and, they were sort of moving around freely.
Yeah.
So, and this time around, yes, I've had a lot of help. In fact, friends now, like I said, COVID has made a huge difference.
Yeah.
So this time I have friends coming over and, running errands for me. So there's a lot of support. Support system is huge.
I'm glad. And I think what were the few things that I feel like you learned about yourself through both experiences that you would like to share? Because it
I
is
learned a lot.
about the caregiver and, you have been dealing with it in two different times, one in COVID, one in the other. And I'm sure there's learnings that you've had,
Oh,
experiences
yes.
you've had. So yeah, what do you think were the most important
One
ones?
is I didn't realize I could have done so much. My real potential came out. It was under a challenging situation. Like, okay, we've had caregiving in our family for many, many years. My mom's been a caregiver to my grandparents. So we've always seen, older people being taken care of with not much, other help. So caregiving wasn't like a new concept to me, but I didn't realize I was capable of doing so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really challenging. It was like you realize your true potential. So once like anything else happens and you feel like, if I could do it then, I can do it now.
Yeah.
That confidence has come into me that, yes, of course, there were consequences and all of that. But I realized my potential and capacity to, balance work, home, control my temper, because at that time you can't, sort of shout at somebody who's doing something wrong because emotions run high at that time in the house.
Yeah.
And what else? I also realized that it's not the end of the world. If there's no help, we have to manage it ourselves. We have to somehow, like I said, the patient is in the middle of everything. So the patient should not suffer. We can do our things tomorrow. Like I said, you can do the laundry tomorrow. You can, keep the dirty vessels in the bin over there. But you cannot neglect the patient at any cost.
Yeah.
It's like as long as the patient is comfortable, everything else is secondary.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know we've covered some, challenges and frustrations through COVID, but maybe this time round, not being in a COVID setting, and being a caregiver to your mother, what were your challenges in this new environment with being a caregiver?
new environment was I was not working, so that was a big change, and
Mm.
I had decided to actually travel before she fell down. So I was doing a Rajasthan trip, which of course had to be cancelled completely. And I would say acceptance of the fact that she is immobile now. She's a person who's been like a rock. She's always supported everyone else in the family. So seeing her in that condition of helplessness because she had broken her hip bone,
Yeah.
that sort of took me a while to accept that mom is not able to do her own things and she needs help and physio and though she's a very strong person and she's come out of it very well, but those initial days were very challenging.
Yeah.
And she also had a cardiac problem while she was in hospital, which she refused to accept. So she was in the ICU for about, out of her 15 days stay, 5 days were in the ICU. So when she came home, it was a miracle. We thought she wouldn't come home. So that fear of losing her was very high at that point of time, not because of her fall, but because of a cardiac issue. So
Mm-hmm.
it was always complex, and she has certain, reactions to something. So managing that along with her maid, and maids not very often, are good at giving tablets, etc. So I was more in a supervisory role, ensuring that she gets her medicines on time. So I wasn't hands-on with her,
Mm-hmm.
literally, till about 21, she fell out, 22 Jan, I
Mm-hmm.
had a maid. And then once she started walking, we realized, there's no role that the maid can really play. And the caretakers aren't the best.
Mm-hmm.
They're always on their phones, they're watching videos on their phones, and the patient is calling out, they've got the earplugs on. So then we realized, why do we have this woman coming in and we're paying her such a high amount when they're not bothered about the patient? Like I had to call her and shout out to her saying, Mummy bula rahi hai, to why don't you go? So Jan 22, whole of 22, I took care of her on my own, and now she's okay. She's managing independently. We don't have anyone for her. So
That's good. I'm glad.
she's
Um,
come out of it really.
Yeah. And I think that's what, as a caregiver, the hardest challenge is, seeing somebody you love, either weaken in some stages and, you see them completely become a new person from what you've known them your entire life.
Yeah.
And so, on that regard, how was that journey for you?
See, frankly, for mom, it was a phase. It was like she went down and then she's come out of it. But navigating that down to up, for example, simple things like she's always managed the house keys
Mhm.
and, what is kept where and everything. She's like been the daddy in the house, literally. So obviously, when she was in hospital, I took over that charge, and then suddenly she realized that she was absolutely useless and helpless, and I didn't realize that she wanted all that control back. Which is such a small thing, but I was doing it because I felt she's a patient. And then one day she said, I feel so helpless. I don't know what's happening in the house. तुम लोग क्या कर रहे हो मुझे कुछ पता नहीं है. So I said, what do you want? We're taking care of you. अभी और क्या चाहिए. So no, I don't know how much money you're spending. And that's when I realized, I said, okay, fine. You want the hisab? I'll give you the hisab. It's a very tiny thing. Not that, she didn't trust us, but she just felt that lack of control. Having been a completely, in charge and control person, suddenly not doing anything. So I had to manage her mentally more than physically. With mom, it was more that the challenge was more, taking care of her and bringing her back out of, feeling useless and helpless. So then we started giving her little work to do. Like, she would wipe the plates on the dining table, sit on the table and make her feel like, Acha, main kuch kar rahi hu. She likes to do dusting. So then we said, okay, fine, you sit and do whatever dusting you can, or you stand and do it, but no bending because
Yeah.
she's not allowed bending. So bringing back that, what should I say, feeling of that, yes, I am contributing to the household, I am doing something, I'm not a patient. That
Mhm.
also is very important to, mobilize them is one thing. She started walking, but then the mind is active and the body was not supporting her. So how do you balance that, And she has the willpower. She's really made it.
Yeah.
So that was my challenge. With her, it's the mental challenge more than the physical. With dad, it was a physical challenge
Yeah.
because he was absolutely helpless. So
Yeah.
but
I
she's
mean,
okay today. She's fine. So I guess, though she's not 100% back to normal, but I would say at least 50% back to her normal life.
yeah. Um, I think now more so with the way that you have seen two different situations altogether. And a lot of people have also similarly, either one parent and then the other parent, or two separate family members have, you know, possibly gone through something like this and been caregivers. What would be your one insight that you would like to give to them? Because I feel like, for you, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was very close back to back one another, right? So, like you said, you didn't realize how resilient you were until you went through it. But a lot of people, are scared of it sometimes. So, what would be your insight, at least for people who are not yet caregivers, but could potentially be caregivers in the future?
I would say one insight is do it when it has to be done, rather than delegate it if you can do it, because the joy of, taking care of an elderly person. And all said and done, they took care of us when we were young. So, they brought us up and did whatever they had. So I see it as a, paying back time. So if you can do it, do it. But yes, not at the cost of your health or your mental well-being. So
Yeah,
somewhere we have to be careful of, we don't go to the other extreme of doing everything for them and neglecting ourselves.
yeah,
So I feel it's a time to repay them because life is short and they won't be with us for very long. So might as well do whatever we can for them. And definitely not at the cost of your own health.
yeah,
So maybe go out, talk to friends or keep that little time for yourself so that you feel, regenerated, you
yeah,
feel energized rather than just being in this routine of, caregiving.
yeah. Did you find it hard to ask or say that, okay, this is my boundary? Some things cannot happen now. Some things,
I did. I
and
did.
yeah, so share what was your journey with that? Like mentally, what was going on?
See, it started, I would say, not when mom had a fall, but after sort of damaged my back. I had a spinal surgery at my L4, L5 moved out of place and
Mhm.
it was pressing on a nerve. So surgery was the last option. I tried physio. And that was the time I started, building those boundaries, saying, I can't do it now.
Mhm.
I've done enough. I can't. I physically couldn't cope with it. So I had to learn to say no. And it was very difficult, but it was not possible at all. So I had to say, okay, I can do this much, but please hire a maid to do the rest.
Mhm.
So that's when we again brought in a maid. And, before my surgery, I had to have somebody at home with her. So,
Yeah.
and she doesn't like maids. So that's another issue with older people. They don't like, outsiders coming in and doing things for them. So very challenging to make sure the chemistry matches, between an older person and a young person who's coming in as a caregiver, and they come as a profession. It's a job for them. So there's no emotional attachment that they have. So it's very difficult to, make an older person understand that yes, she's going to be here for this much time and this is what she will do. She will not do something over and above that. It's not like the old times. So, and my mom and dad have been in the 80s and 90s, so they've seen a different generation
Yeah.
completely. So they don't understand the whole concept of, caregivers are professional people. They are not housemaids.
Yeah.
So making them understand that, and also we pay quite a price for them. So that whole psychological thing of, I'm paying her so much, but why can't she do some little housework also for me?
Yeah.
So those are the challenges I faced at that time.
To sum up this interview, what were a few of moments of joy, that were part of your experience? Some anecdotes you would like to share during your caregiving journeys?
Moments of joy actually was that we managed to keep that in dad's case. I'm talking of dad's case. Like I said, the whole environment outside was very, very challenging. So when he passed away, I was actually relieved that, we did everything at home and we didn't have to take him to a hospital, because in those days, hospitals are not releasing bodies. They would
Yeah.
have put him into an ICU, because of his overall condition, and we would have never seen him. So
Hmm.
I can't call it a moment of joy, but a moment of relief that, we managed everything at home and he passed away peacefully with all his family members around him. And we didn't have to be waiting outside an ICU for the doctor to come out and tell us he's passed away.
Yeah.
I've seen those moments also with other family members. So I think that was my biggest relief, that jo bhi ho saka, we did it.
Yeah.
And he went peacefully without any, needles in him, nothing, no ventilator, nothing at all.
Yeah.
So that was with him. And with mom was to see her walk again, and that was like she was flat out in bed for 5 days, and she has a high BP and a heart problem. So she was on blood thinners. So
Hmm.
5 days she was in agony, flat on her back before her surgery. And that was the most challenging time. And then I said, one day this lady has to walk, otherwise she'll be miserable. And she came home, not walking, of course, she came home on a wheelchair. But as she started walking in the house, I think that was my moment of joy, that at least she's independent. She's not going to be bedridden and flat on her back.
Yeah.
So those are two key achievements, I would say. More for mom because she's a hyperactive person, and had she been like in dad's place, things would have been horrible.
Yeah. All right then. I think that's all we have for today. Is there anything else you would like to share to fellow caregivers who are watching this, potential caregivers who are watching this?
Don't give up. Don't give up. I would say it is challenging, but there is this, satisfaction or kind of, I wouldn't call it achievement, but you feel good when you take care of somebody. And there are times when you feel, why the hell is this happening to me? Why me? And we get into those kind of, self-pitying kind of states, but it is worth it at the end of the day. So don't give up. Persist, and of course, seek help, whatever, maintain your balance. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ella, for sharing your story and bringing to light a story that I feel like many others would also will experience, may have already experienced. And Caregiver Saathi is a community for all to share each other's stories and be there for one another and hear each other. And yeah, I would like to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.